drug trafficking. The money that comes in buys weapons and kills people here in Colombia.
The whole Colombian elite has been assassinated systematically, cold-bloodedly.
We are sick people in every aspect of our lives, spiritually as well as physically.
We already know what the drug trade has done to the United States. Tonight, another nation's agony, the misery that drug trafficking has brought to Colombia.
This is ABC News Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from New York, Forrest Sawyer.
The United States has, as we all know by now, declared a war on drugs. But it is Colombia that has become the front lines. Armed with billions of American dollars, Colombia's cocaine barons have bribed officials and judges who have opposed them and slaughtered the ones who tried to resist. They have routinely executed journalists who have spoken out. And while the Colombian government vows to continue its war on the traffickers, it is not at all clear the people are behind the idea. An ABC News Washington Post poll shows 58% of all Colombians support amnesty for the traffickers if they stop the violence and get out of business. 65% suspect the drug war is a U.S. attempt to control their government. They believe they are being forced to pay the price for what is essentially a U.S. problem. Why so much resentment? You'll see. But first, listen to some of the people who are trying to take back their country from the drug lords. Journalist Enrique Santos of Bogotá's El Tiempo newspaper is our guide.
The cartels have literally ripped this country apart. Since 1983, it's cost thousands of lives, thousands, and the lives of our best people, the most courageous police officers, the most honorable judges and magistrates, the best journalists. The whole Colombian elite has been assassinated systematically, cold-bloodedly by the drug cartels. To understand that, you'd have to think in USA terms as if the North American mafia assassinated the editor of the Washington Post and the leading candidate during a presidential campaign and half the Supreme Court and hundreds of police officers and judges. And that's what this war has meant for us.
At a political rally 20 miles south of Bogotá, the Colombian capital, leading presidential candidate Senator Luis Galan walked to the stage triumphantly. Moments later, in a hail of machine gun fire, he was shot down.
After presidential candidate Galan's assassination, Barco declared his war, and the cartels declared theirs. And they unleashed this sort of rampant, blind campaign of terrorism. That created a sort of a collective state of panic among the people.
My husband, he was killed by the cartel 10 months ago. I've never investigated anything, just left everything just the way it was. Because I have 3 sons and I wouldn't like anything to happen to them.
En Lima, sobre este problema del narcotráfico y eso. Colombian journalists have learned to live with this dictatorship of intimidation, of fright that the cartels have tried to impose. You're sitting in your car waiting for the red light to change. Any motorcycle, any bicycle, anything that comes by, you're already like this. So it changes everything. It changes your bylines. It changes the way you work, the way you think, the way you feel when you sit down and you're going to write. It basically means learning to live with intimidation, with fear.
If anyone would have told me 10 years ago, I would go around in an armored car with 4 bodyguards. And in the building where I live, had to be 5 or 6 soldiers, I would have laughed. They were crazy.
I've worked with my father in the newspaper already for something like 20 years. And we respect each other a lot. He has all the right to be romantic because he thinks of the Colombia of 30 years ago, very peaceful, rural country. And Colombia is very different now.
Drug trafficking. The money that comes in buys weapons and kills people here in Colombia. People no longer want to work for betterment. it has done the same thing in the States, you know. What's the way of getting out of the ghetto? Dealing crack. Fast, quick, rich. That's what happened here, too.
Jose Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha was in charge of enforcement for the Medellin cartel. His killing is a major victory for the Colombian government, which has been facing increasing pressure from its own citizens to either defeat the cocaine cartels or negotiate with them to end the drug violence. The Colombian government aired television commercials offering a $250,000 reward for Gacha and Pablo Escobar, who is widely believed to be the founder of the Medellin cartel and is still at large.
They were winning the war against narco-terrorism. Pablo Escobar, who sees what happened to his right arm, and is waving the white flag, and he's going to give up his hostages, and he's going to give up the dynamite and the weapons and the airstrips and the labs, and he's been doing it so far. But the Colombian government is winning it because it's a war for its own survival. No, it's not a war. This kind of war is not to solve the gringo consumers' problems, but to save our institutions from a kind of a narco-fascism that was threatening to take over.
When we come back, we are going to be joined by a Colombian newspaper man, a former Colombian justice minister, and a former U.S. drug official who was based in Colombia, all of whom have received threats against their lives.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Lexus.
After years of intense work, Lexus is ready to celebrate. Because even at the equivalent of 145 miles per hour, the Lexus LS400 is designed to stir the soul and not much else.
You know, there's a lot you gotta know about plumbing. So what do? Ask Ace.
Hey, whoa. Fast-acting Ace drain opener is just 99 cents, and 6 pairs of Loving Hands latex gloves are $2.99 a pack.
Ace is the place for me.
Let me tell you.
Soldier Field, Chicago. Over 300 dead batteries and 1 die-hard battery. Our most powerful ever jump-starts every one. Die-hard. More power when you need it most.
Get ready. We just took an Oldsmobile from the bestseller list and put it on the best buy list. Oldsmobile 88, the best-selling full-size car in the Midwest since 1984, now has $1,500 cash back. That's a full $1,500 cash back.
This is a new generation.
You get $1,500 cash back on any new 1990 Oldsmobile 88 now through March 22nd. See your Oldsmobile dealer and save today.
See the Tri-State Olds dealer nearest you today.
We're looking. We're looking. Yes, we are looking.
Come on.
I'm just looking for a push. Bill.
On This Week with David Brinkley, as a reunified Germany seems inevitable, Secretary of State Baker on all the questions, the allies, the military, and the economy, Sunday.
Juan Manuel Santos is with us tonight from Bogota, Colombia. He is the brother of Enrique Santos, whom you met just a few minutes ago, and is deputy publisher of El Tiempo, Colombia's largest national newspaper. And like many in his profession in Colombia, Santos has been the subject of death threats. With us from our Houston affiliate, KTRK, is a former U.S. drug official who spent several years based in Bogota. Now, to protect his identity, we're just going to call him George. Even though he is now retired from government service, George wants to keep his identity secret because of threats against his life by the Colombian drug cartel. And joining us in our Miami bureau is Monica de Graef, who was Colombia's Minister of Justice from July through October of 1989. One of her predecessors was assassinated, and during her tenure, Ms. de Graef and her family received a number of death threats as well. Mr. Santos, of course, you paid a great deal of attention to the drug summit that was held yesterday. President Bush, your President Barco, the presidents of Peru and Colombia, all getting together, issuing what President Bush has called a new challenge, and says that there is an anti-drug cartel emerging from all this. Well, your paper's written about it. You've seen the other newspapers. How's it playing down there?
Well, this has been major news here, of course. Just the mere visit of a President of the United States and joined by the President of Bolivia and Peru. It's major news. The reaction here is quite different from different points of view. Some people think it's a mere show, nothing is going to come out. Other people think there was a positive step. There was a recognition that this problem is a multilateral problem. It's a problem of everybody. It's not only a Colombian problem or a U.S. problem.
When you say that some people see it as a step forward, is that simply because the president was there and his presence was there, or is there something in specific that they're reacting to?
Well, I think the communique, the document, the 16-page document that was signed, is the first time that they recognize jointly that the problem is not either the U.S. or Colombia. This ping-pong that was being played from Colombia saying that it's a U.S. problem, it's a demand problem, and from the U.S. saying it's a supply problem. This, I think, is now behind the scenes, and it's a problem of both the U.S. and the producing countries. I think that's a very major step forward.
Mr. Gray, if you
also the...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The rest of the document, nothing very specific came out of it, but at least there was a commitment in writing to follow certain steps. And now, instead of having just words, we at least have a document to fall back on in the future to say, well, we want some action.
Mr. Grave, having been a part of the Colombian government, you were able to look at the war that's been waged against the drug traffickers from a unique perspective. How do you think it is faring?
Well, I think it's going very well. I think for sure the government at this point is winning. And this summit or meeting with the other presidents of Latin America is, I think it's a very good start for communication. And that's the important part. Even if the work or what they sign would take, I think, a lot of time, it's not easy to implement all these things in just a short time. Just the communication is very good for Latin America and especially for Colombia.
Well, you were Justice Minister during a most critical period when the cartel had said that they were going to wage total and absolute war. They issued death threats against you. Even more importantly to you, I know they issued death threats against your family. Now, the fact that you were in Miami, should we take that as an indication, in fairness, of the power of intimidation in Colombia?
Oh, well, I wasn't sure at that time. I didn't want my son to be there, and because it would be like, it would be difficult for me having my son there without, I couldn't see him the way I wanted to see him or being with him. So I just tell my son and my husband to be here. After I resigned, I came here and I'm working here, and I hope to be back in Colombia as soon as possible.
George, you've been in Bogota a lot of years. You know that many Colombians feel that the United States just simply doesn't understand it from Colombia's point of view, and they believe, look, this is a United States problem. You stop using the stuff, there's not going to be anybody here to sell it. Now, what's wrong with that point of view?
Well, what I consider wrong is that as long as the Colombian cartels continue to send large or ton quantities of cocaine to the United States, we will be developing new addicts on a daily basis faster than we can rehabilitate and train people or cure them from their habit. This is not just a U.S. problem. Colombian cartels have been increasing the quantities they're sending to Europe, establishing a market in Europe, and we're dealing with a substance that is addictive. It's not just a substance that has no side effects. I think it has to be approached from a multifaceted system of prevention, enforcement, rehabilitation. We can't blame each other. We're going to have to work together to solve this problem.
You know the players down there very well, and you know how this battle is going on. Is the government waging a serious battle against drug trafficking itself, or are they, in your estimation, trying to stop the terrorism?
Well, my concern has always been, during the years I was in Colombia, many people were assassinated, many of them my personal friends. I would see a sustained effort to capture the assassins for 3 days to 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it would seem that everything would stop and we'd go on to a new phase in this war. And on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, assassinations would take place and no one arrested. It does get very frustrating to see the same people that are responsible for these assassinations go free and appear to have some type of immunity from being apprehended.
All right, let's stop right there. When we come back, we will explore further the issue of how much corruption there may be in the government because of all those billions of dollars the cartel has, and the claim that a deal has already been struck between the government and the cartel. In just one moment.
Arresting an international killer takes the world's largest high-speed public data network.
Cross-reference Jerusalem.
That's why in their race against leukemia, the American Bone Marrow Donor Registry now uses Sprint mail to locate donors.
Get on the phone.
Reducing a 6-week search to a single hour.
Papa, it's for you. I understand. I got to help a friend.
U.S. Sprint International High-Speed Data, redefining business and the business of life.
Why do you think there are more Corollas on the road than any other car in its class?
Toyota reliability. That's why I own a Corolla.
I was amazed at Corolla's resale value, so I bought a new one. I get a kick out of just looking at it. Nice, huh?
Pepperoni Lovers Pizza from Pizza Hut. Now get one medium for $8.99 or two for just $4 more.
Always like the first time that he called. Always like growing strong and growing tall. Some things never change. Some things are always.
One thing you can always count on at Walmart. You can always return or exchange any purchase for any reason. Walmart. Always the low price on the brands you trust. Always.
Enter a world of excitement where fantasy comes to life, where the stakes are high and secrets lie for your entertainment tonight. Enter a world of excitement. Enter the world of entertainment tonight.
Weeknights at 11 right here on Channel 3.
Female drug gangs. Staking territory once ruled by men. If you still think they're the weaker sex, think again.
You can either be the victimizer or the victim, and I choose to be the victimizer.
Watch Peter Jennings on ABC's World News Tonight, Monday.
The topic is Colombia and the war on drugs. Monica DeGraaf, you're a former justice minister. I have to tell you that I have not only heard George, as a drug official, complain about the Colombian government and its prosecution of drug traffickers. There is a claim that officials are either corrupt or they're scared, and as a consequence, not much is getting done. Now, how fair is that?
Well, I think it's no news when a judge rules a case with the law, regarding the law. It's a very big case if it says, well, we don't have enough evidence and let go someone who has been charged with narco-trafficker as a narco-trafficker, or it's a very big news if the case can't go on, or if they don't get the person. But the judges in Colombia, there are thousands, and this is true. They have a lot of work. They've been handling and doing a great effort. And only when this big news goes out, then you say, oh, it's because of bribe, or then if they do their job as they should do, they get killed. I think we have a lot of honest people. And of course, in institutions ruled by men and where men are working there, you have people doing things the way they shouldn't. But I think the large majority of our judges do the work as they should do.
How about it, George? Are you confident that the Colombian officials you dealt with are on the up and up and you can trust them?
Yes, I was very confident in the Colombian officials. I feel that corruption is minor compared to the power of intimidation and the threats. The cartel members holding Colombian law enforcement and the Colombian government hostage to threats they can carry out. It's real.
It is brute force and terror that you are concerned about.
That is correct. No matter whether it's a policeman, a judge, a newspaper reporter, a TV commentator, anyone that does anything to upset the traffickers is assassinated shortly thereafter. And that is something that has to be dealt with, and I think it will take more aggressive enforcement to bring these people to justice. Otherwise, the assassinations will continue as they have for the past several years.
Mr. Santos, our other two guests are here in the United States. You are still in Bogota, and you are with El Tiempo, which is a very aggressive newspaper in campaigning against drug traffickers. Now, help me understand how life goes on for you and others like you. Are you scared every day?
Yes, of course I'm scared. It's a life which I don't wish anybody, any of my friends would live. You have to go in bulletproof cars, you have to go watch your family, you have to go out of the country quite often. But I must say that the situation has changed quite a bit in the last month since this declaration of surrender, if one may call it that, of the cartel. The mood has changed dramatically. And also I want to add that the corruption, which I think is much more than what Ms. de Graaf or George is saying, that aspect has also changed quite a bit since President Barco declared war on the drug cartel. He has made a tremendous cleaning job in the armed forces and the police, and the judges are starting to feel more protected, more stimulated, and therefore the mood is changing.
Well, you talk about a surrender. Now, in fact, they turned over one of their laboratories, a very large one, but it wasn't apparently an active laboratory, and this is really the third full-scale peace proposal they've offered in 6 years. So how can you, in the first place, be confident that they really mean it? And in the second place, what's wrong with the idea in Colombia of saying, look, just go out of business, stop, you can have amnesty, keep your money, go away. It's the Americans' problem.
Well, first of all, you must take the word of these people with a great caution. People who don't hesitate in bombing a building or blowing up an airplane. If they say something, you have to be very cautious of what they say. What they have offered is a unilateral ceasefire and unilaterally giving up what they call all their machinery, their weapons, their private armies, their labs. And in exchange for that, they want what they call more lenient treatment from the government. They don't want amnesty, I don't think. And right now, this is a big issue here in Colombia. The government has not changed its policy. They're going after the drug traffickers. I think that's the correct attitude. If they give themselves up, then I think the government has won the war on narco-terrorism, which is a very distinct thing than winning the war against drug trafficking.
All right, let's stop right there. Ms. de Graaf, I'm going to give you a chance to jump in here in just one moment. We'll be back in a second.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America.
At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
Will the owner of a Black Eagle Talon with all-wheel drive and 16-valve turbo identify himself?
You bet he will.
Did you know Eagle Talon is one of Automobile Magazine's top 10?
Talon has won several prestigious automotive awards, so what's one more?
Car and Driver's 10 Best.
When cars burn gasoline, they emit poisonous carbon monoxide. The more cars, the more carbon monoxide. But now you can fight it, because a change to a high detergent fuel blended with pure grain ethanol can reduce carbon monoxide emissions by 25% or more. And that helps hold down ozone pollution in our cities. Now that's a breath of fresh air for everyone. ADM, supermarket to the world.
I see you chose Ford Taurus over all the imports.
No contest.
Was it because Taurus is one of America's 10 best values?
No.
The equipment, cruise control, power locks, AM/FM cassette.
No.
Okay, why Taurus?
Have you driven a Ford lately?
Right now is the best time to buy your Ford Taurus. Get $750 cash back, plus save $700 more on options. Drive the design leader, Ford Taurus, at your quality Ford dealer.
Have you driven a Ford lately?
Mr. Grafe, a moment ago, Mr. Santos left us with the point that the government may be winning the war against terrorism. That is, the violence may be diminishing, but drug trafficking remains a problem. President Barco himself has said as long as the demand is there, the supply will continue. Is that right?
Yes, I agree with that, but I wanted to tell Mr. Santos and to everyone that what the narco traffickers at this point really want is not to get extradited. And I think by giving in the labs and saying they are surrendering, they are not paying the high price they should be paying. They should be in jail. You cannot forget the crimes they committed, the assassinations they committed, the violence, and everything they're doing. It's just not enough, I think.
Mr. Santos, that it seems to be a key point. They call themselves the extraditables. They simply don't want to go to the U.S., and there are reports floating around that the government has already made a deal, that they've offered no extradition in return for going out of business and giving up the labs and so on. Have you heard this? Do you know anything about that?
Yes, and it's a very curious situation. The president has mentioned that his policy might be, quote, flexible towards the traffickers, and he said yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that he was willing to hear what they had to offer. That does not mean that he has to negotiate, because the law permits him to simply not to extradite him, but to judge him here in Colombia and put them in jail. And I think something, in my own view, has to be going on behind the scenes.
George, this leaves you with the last word, somewhat briefly, if you would. What do you think of a deal like that?
I think if Colombia were to agree on a deal with the traffickers for any type of immunity, I believe it would be a morally injustice committed against the people that have given their lives, that have been murdered by these people over the years, and just to throw up our arms and say, okay, let's forget everything, I think would be one of the saddest things that could happen, and these people would have died in vain.
All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight. A very difficult topic, and we will return to it again. That is our report for tonight. I'm Forrest Sawyer in New York, and for all of us here at ABC News, good night.
For a printed transcript of this or any Nightline broadcast, please send $3 to Nightline Transcripts, 267 Broadway, New York, New York, 10007.
This has been a presentation of ABC News, where more Americans get their news than from any other source.
Joe Kennedy had one goal, to see his son in the White House.
If there's any dirty work to be done, I'll be the one to do it. I don't like it.
It only takes three things to win. The first is money.
the second is money. In the third is money.
Starting Sunday, the Kennedys of Massachusetts.